As long as there's no feedback in the buzz or something.
Karen, did you see the? Sorry, not to sneak up behind. Did you see the hymn we're doing?
Yeah, it was in here, right? It said, what was the number? Let's see here. It's kind of a funny hymn because it's a canon. It's not really like it doesn't have chords, so I have to add chords. So how many times do you want to sing it? Or you're not singing it, it's canon. You know what a canon is, right?
Like spoken?
No, a canon is like a round. It's a round. It's actually a round. So it's either 4 entrances, but I can play it just as a hymn with like the melody, and I didn't know it. People know this.
No, and that's why like when I played it, I'm like, oh, it's simple and
I can,
doable, but it's
yeah, I could play it before. So that's just one verse?
I think that we just maybe we'll just run through it twice.
Yeah,
We
sure.
talked about how we're kind of taking baby steps.
Yeah, I could play through it once, through maybe, because it's kind of new. I don't know. Okay, sure. Sounds good.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Summit Unitarian Universalists Fellowship Hybrid Service. We are here in Sanctuary. We are also on our screens at home on Zoom. And I'd like to welcome everyone this morning. This morning is going to be the first of one of many lay-led services, so it's going to be a little bit different. So hold on and wish us your best. But now to enter into the spirit of worship, let's calm our hearts and our minds and listen to our prelude. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning. I'm playing the Bach, first two movements of the Bach B-flat partita. It was his first opus that he published, the Prelude in Allemande.
Thank you, Karen. And welcome again to the Sunday morning hybrid service of Summit Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We here at Summit, we are a liberal religious community bound together by shared principles that are drawn from world religions, humanist teachings, nature and science, philosophy, and our own personal practices. Our mission here at Summit is to commit ourselves to building a more compassionate, just, and sustainable world. If you're new to Summit or you're new to Unitarian Universalism and you're in the sanctuary, please feel free to talk to anyone with a name tag, and we welcome you this morning. And if you're home on Zoom and you're new to UUism, please go to our summituuf.org and click on our online connection card, and someone will certainly follow up with you. At this time in our service, we always like to acknowledge that for more than 10,000 years, the Kumeyaay people have lived in harmony with the land as fishers and hunters, farmers and artisans, chemists and physicists, astrologers and marine biologists. The history of their presence on this land is visible in many San Diego area places and in the thousands of artifacts preserved in collections like those housed at the Barona Museum. We want to acknowledge that our fellowship physically resides on unceded Kumeyaay land, which continues to be the home of the Kumeyaay people. We recognize the violent history of colonization in California, and we honor the legacy of the continuing presence of the Kumeyaay Nation. Just one brief announcement that I have this morning from Mary Carter-Vale. Good morning, Mary.
Working on all the tech today. Tyler is doing the tech that Patrick usually does. So, yay, Tyler. I have an announcement, just a reminder, next Thursday night in the parking lot, well, over by the salon from 6 to 7:30, we're going to have an opportunity for folks to bring a brown bag lunch or dinner, bring a brown bag dinner and come sit in community and eat together. And I'm going to have a fire pit set up with marshmallows and some more makings for both, including stuff for vegan folks. So if you'd like to come and join us on Thursday night from 6 to 7:30 for some fellowship, you'd be most welcome. So I hope to see folks there.
Thank you, Mary. As I said before, this morning doesn't actually have a speaker. We have a group of speakers. You'll be hearing this morning from 4 Summit UU members. Margo Mariana will be here with us. Seraphina Galante and Corbeil are both going to speak from home. They're both feeling a little under the weather, but thanks to our technology team, we can still have them join us in spirit this morning and in words. And then also our own Tyler Mitchell will come away from the tech to offer his speaking later on in the service as well. So we're glad to have all of them here to do the service, and we're also glad to have all of you here as well. And please join us after this service for our community gathering, both on Zoom and here in the sanctuary, and for coffee and refreshments over in the salon. And now, to really begin our service, I'd like to begin by lighting our chalice. Mary, if you'd come up here and light it for me. Thank you. These words are from Atticus Palmer. We call this light before us in hope that we may always remain a strong community, working together to make the world a better place. When we are grieving or sad, when we are challenged, when we need help, this flame guides us out of the darkness. When we are cheerful, when we celebrate, when we accomplish a great task, when we return to a place that makes us happy, the chalice reminds us to share our happiness with others. Now, if you'd like to join with us in sanctuary in song with masks on and while muted on Zoom at home, Tyler Mitchell and Karen will lead us in our UU hymn. Thank you, Tyler. I forgot to ask everyone to rise. If you are physically able, please remind me for the second hymn to ask everyone to rise. Still getting into that habit. Please join me with our UU aspiration. May love be the spirit of this fellowship. May the quest for truth be its sacrament and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration. This morning, something a little bit different. We have a video message from the president of the UUA, the Unitarian Universalists of America, Dr. Reverend Susan Frederick Gray. So we'd like to sit back and enjoy and listen to this. Do you want to pause it and go back to my mic? Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me on Zoom? So this morning when I got into the lectern, there was a piece of paper that I'd never seen before that says very clear in the top in bold writing, in case of tech problems that require stalling, read from the white box. Instructions are in blue. Don't read those aloud. But I'm going to read those anyways. And it says, smile at the congregation, take a breath, read slowly and with a spirit of fun. Well, we have a thumbs up, but should I read it anyway? Or should we? Let's proceed with the video.
Hello, Unitarian Universalists. I'm the Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, president of your Unitarian Universalist Association. It is so good to be with you for another season of Ingathering. This time marks the end of summer, when we come together to renew our commitments to each other, to our Unitarian Universalist communities, and to begin another vital year of ministry. In the summer months, I hope that you and your loved ones found some time to rejuvenate your bodies and spirits, to rest, to enjoy the long summer days, to pursue hobbies that bring you joy. I know that the world is all too much, and it matters that we take time to rest. For rest is necessary for the quality of our lives, of our ministries, and of our spirits. We are all living in what I have come to call a liminal time, a time in between. The pandemic has upended so much. After 2 years plus of virtual and hybrid gatherings in our congregations, the ways in which people connect to religious community has broadened and new patterns are still emerging. On so many levels, what comes next is still unfolding and being imagined. As Unitarian Universalists, we are called to care for each other and to create resilient, theologically imaginative spiritual community that sustains us and inspires us as we navigate what's to come and what is needed. And there is so much needed. From supporting access to reproductive care to showing up through UU the Vote to elect leaders that will work to protect our children, our planet, our future, and our deeply held values. It also matters that we attend to doing the fundamentals of religious community, like supporting children and families recovering from, and in some cases still experiencing, the collective trauma of the last few years. Our world needs our message of love and justice. Our world needs brave, bold, and loving communities that are in the struggle for equity, dignity, and compassion. One way to join with your sibling Unitarian Universalists in this work is through UU the Vote. You can find out more at uuthevote.org. Your Unitarian Universalist Association is the embodiment of the covenant that all of our congregations make to each other to support each other. And the UUA is here because of your commitment to make and support and amplify our values, to support each of our congregations in their time of need, and to be more than any of us are alone. At the UUA, we are committed to being steadfast partners with you in this liminal time and in all that is ahead. As you gather in this sacred hour and join again in community, may we each remember the hundreds and thousands of Unitarian Universalists that are gathering all across our association, celebrating and calling themselves back into the power and the possibility of faithful community. For we are not alone, and we make each other strong. I send you my love and my blessings as we enter this new congregation year and celebrate in gathering. Much love and deep care to all of you.
Thank you for that. And now, Mary Carter Vale with our second consecutive Time for All Ages from the altar.
Mic is, there we go. My mic is working today. No crackles. So in gathering, if you guys haven't heard that or are not familiar with that term, is the fall coming back together that many congregations do. When I was a child, I grew up in a congregation in Maine. And in Maine, it's snowy and cold most of the year. At least it was when I was a child. And there were only 3 months that were our growing season. So when the school year ended, our church year ended, and we had no church for the summer. And then when school went back, we all went back to church, and that's why they call it in gathering. So it's based on the old farming calendar. I don't know if any of you know that story or not. So today I wanted to talk to you about one of the traditions that we used to have in gathering was a water communion, where folks bring water and pour water together and mingle the waters together. And today we're doing something a little different. I brought some water to show you. I wanted to talk about water. So what's water made of? Hydrogen and oxygen, H2O, right? 1 O and 2 H's together to make the molecule-ish. Pardon me, scientists. It's not perfect, but it's RE, right? So we can use pom-poms. So over and over and over on the planet, there's water on our planet, right? We have water in our bodies. Our bodies are mostly water. It's kind of cool, huh? Did you know that all of the oxygen atoms, these were all born in the birth or death of a star? All the oxygen atoms, even that are in us. Everything came out of the cosmos, right? Nothing was here, and then suddenly everything was here. At least that's what our scientists are telling us. So we can imagine that all these oxygen atoms came from the explosions of stars being made or destroyed, and all the hydrogen atoms come from the Big Bang. That's where they were all made. So when we have the water in front of us, it also has stardust. So if there's stardust in this molecule, there's stardust in here too, right? And in our bodies, mostly water, right? So do we have stardust in us? That's pretty cool. Now on Earth, we have the water cycle. Familiar with the water cycle? So we have rain. We saw rain here for the first time in a very long time. So rain comes down, right? It's the earth, filters down into the soil and gets cleansed by the soil. And then it goes down into the water table if you're blessed to have one. I happen to have a well in Ramona. And so the water comes from the earth up through my well, through my faucet. And then I can drink it. I can consume it, or if it rains, it lands on the ground or fills a reservoir and then it evaporates and goes back up to the clouds. So it's this whole cycle, right? This water cycle. So matter is neither created nor destroyed. It's always cycling through. So who else do you think has experienced this water in the water cycle Maybe I'm drinking water that a dinosaur once drank. Or maybe it's water that was once in the Amazon River, or that was in the lungs of a hummingbird. Or maybe it was water that a bee carried to the hive to cool the queen during a hot weather event. So water, we all have water. And as those water molecules all clump together, we look at that as a metaphor for belonging in community, you know? In community, you need all the pieces, just like we need all the little bits of water in our body. So all of us are like little molecules of this community, right? Whether we're here in person or virtually, or just come on occasion, we're all part of the community, right? And it's that belonging where we bring our gifts that we share with each other that makes it so powerful to be a place where you can bring your hurts, you can bring your joys, you can connect with other folks. That's what makes it such a valuable community, is those connections. And I'm so glad to see so many folks here today as we are continuing to hold this container of belonging together. So today you're going to hear some stories from folks from this community. You're going to talk about their belonging. And I am going to head back to our RE with our children. And we are going to talk about the wonderful gifts that we bring. And we're going to do some water play ourselves. So that is my little sharing for you today. And I hope you enjoyed it. I think we have a song now. So when the song plays, I'm going to head out with our families with the children who are heading back. So we can enjoy the beginning of the song and then we'll head back.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreams. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time. We are daughters of dust, sons of great visions, we're sisters of mercy, mothers of love, lovers of light, and builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We're makers of peace
The purpose of any church, faith community, or fellowship is to encourage all who gather there to grow more generous in spirit and in action. This is the great end of all the world's faith traditions, to bring the human being closer to the divine by acts of creation and compassion. We will now take an offering that allows us to exercise that all-important generosity of spirit, an offering that will support this self-supporting fellowship. We make it easier than ever to contribute on the virtual plate today. The link will be found in the chat. And if you're here in the sanctuary, just wait patiently and our ushers will come by. And I will gratefully accept your generous donations during the musical interlude. Good morning again, Karen.
Hello, I will play There Is a Balm in Gilead, arranged by Mark Hayes.
Thank you, Karen. This morning's reflection, again, is going to be a little different. It's not a traditional reflection. It's a group of 4 Summit members sharing their feelings on belonging. So I'd like to welcome Margo Mariana this morning.
And good morning. It's so lovely to see people in the personhood. This pandemic has helped me get over my technophobia, so I've learned to appreciate Zoom very much, but it's so good to be here in the person. And I would say when I thought about this word belonging, I certainly feel from the time I first set foot on this campus, I felt like I belonged. I felt met. So this community really brings that word very much alive for me. I've also been a player with words ever since I was born. My mother said I talked before I was 1, and I love poetry. Many of you know that. And so I played with the word belonging. To belonging, yes, it deals with place. It deals with finding a place. But to me, it also deals to be longing for, and to belong, to be stretched into, to be seeking, to be finding, to exploring. I think from the very time I was born, I embodied that because I was born in Alaska when it was still a territory. And my birth certificate actually says Territory of Alaska on it. And maybe that's why I was somewhat of a wild woman, as my mother called me. But I also like pioneering. And from the very beginning, I've been pioneering. And my father was in the diplomatic service. So I lived in Alaska till I was 5, then he joined the diplomatic corps and we traveled. And we lived abroad just for most of my life. And while it had its challenges, it had its beauty and bounties too, because I was exposed constantly to diversity, to change, to finding a place of belonging by learning and growing and merging into and receiving from what the other cultures. I lived in Japan, I lived in Brazil, I lived in Europe, and all over Europe traveled, and in the Middle East, and also in Thailand. So it was very glad when I came back to the States and lived, but however, when I came back to the States, I came back right in the middle of segregation, and we moved to the DC area. And it was a shock to see whites only sign. I was totally confused. I didn't know what that meant. And it actually, I had a reaction initially, but then it just made more movement in my life to keep on exploring, keep on seeing what was out there. One of my favorite poems is from that about exploration, and it started from the beginning. It's from Mary Oliver. It's simply called a poem. The spirit likes to dress up like this, 10 fingers and 10 toes, shoulders and all the best of the bounties of earth. Airy and shapeless, it could float, of course, but it would rather plumb rough matter, so it enters us. And she goes on and says a few more beautiful images, and it ends the poem with, and lights up the body like a drowning star. So this sense of movement continued into my life, into exploration and finding new beginnings and new meanings. And I think the pandemic has enhanced that more. I think one of the things that for me it's done is to really help me appreciate community more, help me appreciate togetherness more for spending so much time alone, but also actually given the opportunity to live totally in the moment, to live in the here and now, and to find a sense of adventure in the not knowing. There's a beautiful poem by David Spangler, who was one of the co-founders of Finhorn. And it goes like this. Stand still, stand still. Wherever you are is called here, and you must ask permission to know it and be known. Listen, the forest breathes. I have made this space around you. If you leave it, you may come back again saying here. No 2 trees are the same to raven. No 2 branches are the same to wren. If what a tree or a bush does is lost on you, then you are surely lost. Stand still. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. You must let it find you. So I think we're still seeking, we're still growing in this community. And what, after I got out of school and was out in the world and I began to explore my own, personal spiritual path, which I've been doing more in a religiosity sense, I discovered, Zen, I discovered Eastern, Western traditions, I explored them. And I think Unitarian Universalism has really brought a lot of that together for me. I was delighted when I moved here to San Diego to find Summit. One of the first places I set foot on, and I felt so welcomed here and kindness, and I'm still feeling that, feel very met. So belonging to me is a journey, it's movement, it's continuous. We're never stasis, we're always moving and discovering. And I think that it's been an opportunity. Reverend Frank used to say about, not knowing. He used to say, why don't you try and turn it into a sense of adventure, curiosity? And so I'm still trying to do that. I, like a human being, react to change and not liking it, but it's part of life, and it's part of the heart, and it's part of the movement. So these are my thoughts on it. And I'd like to close with a poem that I wrote after hearing the lovely Reverend that spoke to us in the summer on the topic of belonging. And it goes like this. I actually had titled it Belonging. Dawn, a new light sweeps away the last of night into its place of ease and gentles me into waking. I lie in stillness, listen to the silence, breathe, allow my rhythms to pace my pulse into theirs, to open a new permission, to blend into a fertile void, be free of the bindings of time, free of the dangles and tangles of mind's noose, of the need to know, freed into a sacred suspension, stretching into endless reachings that allow me into ever receiving, into the flow of a new communion, into the touching and being touched by infinite possibilities. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Tyler Mitchell, and as many of you know, I was in a barbershop quartet back before COVID. We had performed at a few summit auctions and even on KUSI a few times in our time together. Well, I'm sad to report to you all that I'm no longer a member of a barbershop quartet. Unlike many rock bands, most quartets will never get documentaries dissecting the reasons behind the breakup. It's not to say the community doesn't have its own share of gossip and drama, but most quartets like mine come to an end due to life's natural flows of priority, commitments, or everyone's personal motivation to continue. But that motivation can be powerful. Everyone feeling motivated to continue showing up and doing something that brings them joy is a strong incentive to make time or rearrange commitments. The drive comes from that feeling that you're making something special and that you belong there with those people working together. At its best, that creative motivation comes from the feeling that what you're doing together as a group needs to exist in the world. The magic of any group working together like that seems to create that spark of belonging within the membership, and that keeps everyone involved motivated. But that spark, in my experience, is so hard to get right. You can and we will lose it over time as things change, and it takes a lot of work to get it back. Now, with my quartet, I'll be honest, the spark was waning in 2019 due to some of those factors I mentioned before, but in the final snuff was just the result of COVID. But I had felt that spark previously singing in San Diego. When I moved to San Diego initially, I wanted to find a group to sing with, to join, thinking it would be a good way to make some friends. I searched around and ended up joining a men's barbershop chorus that met to rehearse every Tuesday. Now, at this time, I had barely an idea of what barbershop singing was, but I learned that it was the most challenging style of singing I had ever tried, and that the results could sound very cool when you could get it right. So very quickly, I was hooked, and it definitely helped that that group was great fun, and we were pretty good. As you might expect, there's annual competitions and everything within the community, and we were able to rate pretty high, but we would always lose out in the district to one of the amazing groups up in LA. But we were smaller than those groups, so it was always fun being kind of the underdogs. But best of all, this group felt like a family. For instance, I was in that chorus when I found out that I was going to be a dad, and I was so excited to share that news with them. A lot of them had kids that were either still at home or all grown up, so they could relate to a lot of my feelings. And at the time, I did not know many other parents. So talking with them made that whole concept of becoming a father feel real to me and more doable. It made me think, like, here are these guys that I know that have done this before, and I can do it too. So I joined in 2014. And a few years after I joined, our longtime director announced that she would be retiring after our next competition. There was a lot of disappointment from everyone, as she was well liked and had made the chorus what it was at that point. She was one of those rare directors that can coax the best out of you while keeping everything fun. So with apprehension, we started the process of finding a new director. As you can imagine, the talent pool for directors interested in small choruses like ours was not very large, but the committee got 3 candidates. The first was a top-tier arranger who did not have directing experience. The second was a younger guy who had won gold medals as a singer and was looking to start directing. And the last was a well-known gold medal winning director. Now, it might seem like there's an obvious choice in that list. There's a gold medal winning director there, but there were some strong feelings among the group that had sung from those who had sung under him before, that his style would not match ours and that we would lose a lot of members. Anyway, the tryout process was one rehearsal with each of them. The first one, the arranger's rehearsal, was rough, and it was clear to us that he didn't know how to direct. So if we selected him, it would be a learning process. The young guy was, in my opinion, great. He was eager, but I don't think a lot of the guys appreciated some of his style. And the gold medal winner had us sounding amazing by the end, but many within the chorus found the rehearsal grueling, repetitive, and unpleasant. The gold medal winning director had some pretty strong supporters, though, so we ended up hiring him. And most of the guys stuck around for our Christmas concert later that year. But by spring, we had lost the core of the family, and it became clear to me that the chorus I had loved was changing into something else, and I wasn't as interested in it. I stuck with it for a while, but that spark of belonging that I was talking about is gone for me. Separately, in 2016, after the birth of our son, I had found another spark of belonging, Summit. This was when my wife, Andy, and I started attending, and it felt important for us to keep coming and to slowly get more involved. I was recruited to help out with the auctions. We joined Covenant Group, and that group helped out with the salon on Sundays. We volunteered in RE. Now, like a lot of things over the past couple pandemic years, I know that that spark has flickered here at Summit, and it needs tending. It was tough to get that community feeling we all loved without the ability to gather as a community as we are gathering now. So we are rebuilding, and you'll be glad to hear that my old chorus is thriving, although I'm not a member. They became a mixed chorus, and they started meeting again in 2021. From what I hear, they're growing and thriving as one of the premier mixed choruses in the region. So it can be rebuilt. We can rebuild Summit and build it up even greater than it was before. So that's what I'm trying to do when you see me up here on Sundays or in my role as board member. And that's what my wife Andy's trying to do when you see her working in the salon or in RE or on one of her committees. We want to help rebuild Summit because we think Summit needs to be a great community here. The world needs Summit, and we are doing everything we can to reignite that spark of belonging here. I hope you'll join us in our efforts. Thank you.
We can't hear you, Seraphina. You're not muted, but maybe your microphone is off.
Okay, I
Now
tried.
we can hear you.
Oh, good. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hello. So I'm Seraphina Galante, and for my talk, I chose a question, what does the phrase belonging to myself mean to me? And I added, what does it mean about my spirituality? So Brene Brown's book, Braving the Wilderness, focuses on this month's theme, belonging, and I've used parts of that book to help me talk about my journey. Brown defines belonging as the innate human desire to be part of something larger than us, and because this yearning is so primal, we often try to acquire it by fitting in and by seeking approval, which are often actually barriers to it, because true belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world. She goes on to say that there are certain experiences, especially in early life, that if left unresolved can send us into our adult lives searching for belonging, but settling for fitting in. And that kind of hurt can produce three outcomes. One, you live in constant pain and seek relief by numbing it. Two, you deny your pain. Or three, you find the courage to own the pain and develop empathy and compassion for yourself and others. So my experience has some parallels. One, I used to try to fit in by being very agreeable or silent. I had few opinions and fewer ideas, but was a big support to those who had the opinions and the ideas. Two, I tried to deny the pain, but without success. Until finally, three, I did find the courage to dive deeper into myself, to own the pain, and to develop some self-compassion to be more of a real person. And there was help along the way. There were meaningful life experiences. I found some effective psychotherapy and my relentless curiosity. I wanted to know why, what, and how. Why was I that way? What would change it, if anything, and if so, how? So all of this led to a passion for self-awareness and a pursuit of self-knowledge. And all of that fostered self-acceptance and the quest for true belonging. So it makes sense that our sense of belonging is commensurate with our level of self-acceptance. As my self-worth increased, so did the belief that I had the right to belong, and my level of risk-taking increased. So today I voice more of my opinions and even some ideas. Also, I've found, of course, as I've presented a more authentic, even imperfect self, and felt acceptance from others, my sense of belonging has increased, naturally. But Ms. Brown believes we find true belonging on our own, not with other people. I disagree, or I'm just not that evolved. Probably the latter. She says we need to brave the wilderness, be willing to stand alone in the midst of disagreement, disapproval, and even rejection. Had I encountered rejection? If I were to encounter it now, I don't know. Truly, I haven't braved that wilderness yet. I haven't spent time with people whose thinking, ideas, or political beliefs are truly opposed to mine. And maybe I will someday. That is the kind of courage I want to develop. And I believe it is part of my personal and spiritual development. I believe that being real, being authentic, and belongingness are connected to my spirituality, although I found it challenging to explain this, but this is what I've come up with. And Brene Brown's definition was helpful. So she says, spirituality is recognizing and celebrating that we are all connected to each other by a power greater than all of us. And our connection to that power and to one another is grounded in love and compassion. So that being true, I figure the way in which I participate in the life of our fellowship, the attitude with which I give my time, my skills, my finances, not because I'm desperate to fit in, not for fear of rejection, but rather because it is a celebration of our connectedness, a celebration of our and my belongingness, because it grounds me in love and compassion, and because it nourishes my spirit and enlivens my soul. Thank you.
Good morning, all. And thank you, Seraphina. I wish I could be with everyone today in the sanctuary. Unfortunately, I cannot, but I've been very much enjoying the service. Seraphina's wonderful words, Tyler's his dedication and his service, and Margo's poetry, just wonderful, wonderful stuff. I'd like to start with a poem also. This is by one of my good friends, Stacy C. Johnson. It's called A Whole Art. Many poets aren't poets, Merton says, for the same reason so many religious are not saints. They never get to becoming the version they are meant to be as created by their circumstances of their own lives. It always seems more attractive somehow to be some other artist, one you can point to, already formed, as opposed to, what is this but so much blurred confusion and dissonant noise? The work of the artist comes from staying with the mess, even as the dust settles, even as more debris accumulates, to rescue a faint but still living music from the wreck. So being involved with our Social Justice and Action Committee these last few years has made me very familiar with the expression, this is messy work. We start with good intentions, make some careful plans, execute the plan to move forward, and invariably hurt someone. Because we don't always know how to do this. The only thing we really know is that it must be done. And what is it? Is it reaching out? Is it looking within? Is it assuaging guilt? Culture change? I think it is belonging. The etymology of this word is from the mid-14th century, to go along with, to properly relate to. To properly relate to means, to me, to care. I cannot properly go along with someone unless I care about them. I was reading Dear Abby last week, and she was responding to a lonely teenager who was asking how to make friends. Her advice was to suggest he learn about other people and these groups he wanted to join, discover what they were interested in, and have something to offer them, to care about them. When I joined Summit, I joined because I was looking for a progressive spiritual community, a social community, like-hearted people. I also wanted these things for my children. For the first few years, I enjoyed the Sunday services with their wonderful music and thoughtful sermons. I would listen, feel inspired, say a few hellos, and then I would leave and go about the rest of my day. I didn't really feel a connection though until I joined the choir. I loved to sing, and it was there I felt as if I was contributing something. I was giving something while I took something. Committee, and I did, terrified that I would have to actually do something out of my comfort zone. but it allowed me to learn more about the workings of the congregation, how all this happens. And it showed me that it takes hard work by many volunteers and that I was capable too. I could hold my own with you hardworking people. But more importantly, I started to care. I took more interest in what we were doing here, what it was we were really about, and I realized I could do more to help. And that was when I felt that I belonged here. My family of origin consists of 4 sisters and 2 brothers, and our wonderful 97-year-old mother still going strong, still setting an example, still caring about each of us. We siblings are all very close, spending time together each year at Mom's summer cabin. But as we all know, family isn't always easy. And as we deal with our mother's final years, her care and the disposition of her cabin, old hurts, unresolved, still bubble up. The last few weeks have been particularly painful, and some, including me, are finding it difficult to communicate. Even sending a text doesn't work. A one-word text, yes or no, is too terse, too snippy. What are you implying? So we are giving each other room. We have been through this before, at least 3 of us, for 70 years. Seriously, 70 years. But it's messy work, isn't it? It's a real pain in the bleep sometimes. You think, I don't really need this. I don't really need these people. But again, the word belonging, with its root to go along with, has relatives in Latin, Old Persian, Sanskrit, and Greek, all related to the meaning of long, distant, remote, perpetual. If I care about something, I am in it for the long haul. Long haul. That's a cool metaphor, speaking of poems. I do need a family of origin. I do need Summit. I want to belong. I want to become the version I am meant to be. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who spoke and shared this morning. We're going to sing hymn number 1059 in the hymnal. It's a short song. It's a simple song, but it's also one that we're not terribly familiar with. So Karen's going to play it through one time so we all understand the melody. And then we're going to sing it twice and do our very best as we slowly relearn how to sing in sanctuary. Progress. Before I read the chalice extinguishing words, I'd just like to invite everyone to stay after for the community gathering. I'd also like to invite everyone back for next week when it will be the Social Justice in Action Committee's service, and we will have a speaker here from the Interfaith Shelter, so we know of their development over these last 2 years, and time to start thinking about whether or not we're going to do the Interfaith Shelter this spring. So we hope you'll be here for that. Margo, would you mind extinguishing the chalice for me as I read these words? These words come from the Reverend Dr. Michael A. Schuler. If you are proud of this church, become its advocate. If you are concerned for its future, share its message. If its values resonate deep within you, give it a measure of your devotion. This church cannot survive without your faith, your confidence, your enthusiasm. Its destiny and the larger hope rests in your hands. Now, to conclude our service, if you'd like to rise and join hands and join in our closing circle song.
Oh.